Professor Ibarra is a professor in the School for Workers and Chicano and Latino Studies in the University of Wisconsin-Madison here. He's also a professor in the School for Workers. He serves as a faculty Latino specialist in the Division of Extension. He earned his PhD in political science from the University of California, Irvine, perdón, le he visto escrita. And he joined UW in January 2011. He holds a master's in public administration, a BA in sociology and Spanish. He has several books, and I'm going to link you the book in Spanish. We'll link you the book here so you can get it. His book, The Latino Question, Politics, Labor and Classes in the Next Left, won the 2019 Best Book in Latino Politics by the Latino Caucus of American Political Science Association. It is a very interesting book if you can check it out. It engages on debates on Latino working class struggles, politics, immigrations, and inequality in the US. We are very happy to have him here with us. He's going to talk to us today about a brief overview of the Latino community here in Wisconsin and a little bit of the implications about cultural and societal change here in Wisconsin. So we are very, very happy to have you here, Professor Ibarra. And thank you so much for joining us, and everybody here, welcome, and we hope you enjoy this session.
Muchísimas gracias for the introduction, Dr. Beltran. I learned this morning that I was requested to do this presentation in Spanish. The best that I could probably do is throw a word in here or there in Spanish to try to make it a little bit more inclusive. Para las personas que nos acompañan, que son hablantes español, ay, discúlpenme que no voy a poder hacer la presentación toda en español, pero aún estoy hablando con ustedes, ¿verdad? De nosotros, y es una cosa que a mí me trae mucho orgullo. What I just said was that I am, for those of you that are expecting in Spanish, I apologize that I can't speak with you about you in the language, in your language, but it's an honor to be able to talk with you folks today. So Oscar asked me to do a brief presentation, 18 minutes of intense talk. To me, it's something that becomes very difficult to be concise because there's so many implications, especially around the topic that's so that requires so much talent right now, so much talent and so much commitment. And we're specifically talking about the different types of artists that we have in our community, poets, muralists, painters, you know, people that write literature. I mean, just a whole list of very talented and dedicated folks, which I admire and respect so much. I am a fan of protest art, and you can probably see some of that in my background. That's Malaquillas Montoya from California, who has been doing anti-imperialism, pro-immigration art since the Chicano movement of the 60s and 70s. But let me begin the presentation that I have, and let me know if you're able to see my screen with a thumbs up. No?
Yes.
You are?
Wait,
okay.
No screen yet. I'm sorry, no screen yet.
Okay. Déjame ver. So go here, hide. Oh, I guess I pushed the big button that says share screen, right?
That will be it, yes. You should be able to, there we go, perfect, there. Awesome.
So what you have in front of you is really part of the work that I've been doing in Wisconsin since I got here over 10 years ago. And part of this work is really to start engaging the the state in a conversation of the impacts that the Latino, Latina, Latinx, or whatever it is label that we want to use, right? Has been having on this state for quite some time now. And you would be surprised how different these conversations are depending on where you give them in different areas of the state. I've given this presentation in very rural areas, in very urban areas as well. And it's always a question of having had exposure or having lived in these communities or with communities that is quite interesting. So I'm going to cover a couple of key points right now. And what I'll cover is this demographic transformation that the state of Wisconsin, along with the rest of the country, is undergoing. And it's important to talk about because at one point, many folks in Wisconsin didn't see this transformation or thought that the state was immune to this demographic shift, the so-called browning of America that we've heard in the popular narrative, many times in a pejorative way. So I'll talk a little bit about the demographic transformation, then I'm going to switch over to images of what's been defined as artivism from Wisconsin immigrants' rights social movement. We know that here in Wisconsin is home to one of the largest leading national organizations in the immigrant and worker rights realms or social movements, and that's Voces de la Frontera, which I will show some images from those protests. And it's important because these images are part of this larger conversation of how power is challenged at the state, but also the national level with regards to conversations on and actions that directly impact those most marginalized within the Latino, Latina, Latinx community. So just a quick introduction. I do a lot of what's called applied and action research. What you see in the middle is the last piece of research that I conducted, which was on workers in the pandemic and bringing voice to the voiceless. A key part of this conversation was to include undocumented essential workers and bring their voices, center their narratives and of the impacts that were taking place, how they're being affected. And this report has been used by many folks here in the state of Wisconsin to inform both policy decisions and guidelines for both state level mitigating of COVID-19, but also workplace mitigating of COVID-19. The other two are more traditional works. One of them is Man of Fire, for those interested in labor history and interested in those that we have not heard about in a while. There's this person by the name of Ernesto Galarza who wrote who was an activist scholar who did what's called action research with a purpose. So research that's to be used in social movements, and in this case was working class union movement building. He was a union man, and he self-identified as working class before he self-identified as any other part of any other group. And then the Latino question, which is our recent publication, and this book really engages in these difficult conversations about power, working class, and identity, right? What does it mean to be a Latino and a member of the working class? And what does this mean in the larger conversation or this war of position that we talk about within that work? Centered also in this book is some action research that was conducted in Milwaukee, with low-wage workers in Milwaukee as well. It's one of the chapters in the book, which really brings the conversation and tries to engage these working class issues that become the common ground between African-American communities, white communities, Asian communities, and Latinx communities. So there's a chapter in there as well. And it's a book that really pushes this idea of culture, political economy, which when we talk about art and culture, it really becomes art becomes center to this what's called this war of position for the fighting of workers' minds, right? And how to move that working class agenda. So demographic shift. So what we see here are two graphs that were published in the same year, or almost the same year, 2013 and 2014, in both California and in Wisconsin. So what this signals in California is that for the first time in California, we see a minority majority. So Latinos had surpassed all other groups in California, becoming the largest group in general. And we see a similar transformation in Wisconsin in 2013 and 2014, where we see that the Latino community had become the second largest group in the state. So there's these trends that are happening across the country that now are showing up in Wisconsin as well. And this signals that change of that demographic shift that we talk about, that so-called browning of America. What I'm going to show you now is some graphs to let you get a visualization as to this change in itself. So what you saw now is some work. I'm also an affiliate with what's known as the Applied Population Laboratory here at UW-Madison. And they create these maps to really give you a visualization of the Latino population or any other population, uses census data, CPS data, ACS data. And what we see here is something very real. What we see is not only the increase of the Latino population since 1990 to now, which is more than doubled, right? We're at close to 8%, I would argue. But what we see is a dispersion of the Latino population in that time frame as well. When we start looking at places like Trumpelow County, Brown County, and these other places in Wisconsin that weren't traditional areas of Latino migration and settlement are now becoming hubs for newcomers. I like to always share that just as an aside that Green Bay has almost as many Latinos as Madison or in Dane County now, which is something that kind of starts to trigger this dispersion of the population. And quite frankly, it's a labor migration. So just really, really briefly, what we've learned from these census numbers, and let's be clear, these census numbers, in my estimation, it's an undercount, right? So, you know, when I talk to my demographer friends, they tell us that there's probably between a 5 to 10% undercount in the Latino population right now. And this would be a direct result to the way that the census was undertaken under the previous administration. But what we do know is that, you know, we're at 7.6% of the total population in Wisconsin. So about 450,000 people that self-identify as Latino, Hispanic, Latinx, Latina. And of this population, we still haven't gotten the data to really break it down, but we do have 2018 data, and that's what I have below there. So we know that about 100,000 of this population, so about 20 to 25% is foreign born. About 100,000 of these folks within this group are K through 12 students, which becomes a real important data point. It has a poverty rate of 34%. The median age is very young. It's at 25 years of age, which is considerably younger than the mainstream population, the white non-Hispanic population. And 10% of all births in the state of Wisconsin are to Latina mothers. So what I just put here is I gave you just a snapshot of what a demographic shift looks like. I often tell folks that that this demographic shifts is going to happen no matter what we do at this point. We can close the borders. We can build 50-foot high walls. We can stop immigration from all Latin America sending countries. And guess what, folks? This demographic shift is going to still take place simply because of the population is younger, it's higher birth rate, and that's what's going to, and the in-migration that's happening by Latinas, Latinos, Latinxes from other states in the US to Wisconsin. About 15 years ago, if you would have told me that Wisconsin would be a destination of choice state, I would have said, no way. Today is absolutely one of the destination of choice states, meaning that newcomers and other Latinos now choose to come to Wisconsin because of the mature Latino communities here as well. So when we look at places like Arcadia, and I was talking to a reporter yesterday, and I mentioned in Arcadia, 80% of the K through 12 student population is Latinx. 80% of students in Arcadia are Latinx. Almost 18% of the population in Arcadia is Latino. So these in Trumbull County, we know that Ashley Furniture is there, and there's been a large migration, labor migration to this area of Latinos, including settlement. So if we want to understand what our state is going to look like in the near future, we look at the student population. And that's the transformation that's going to take place, which often causes some antagonism, right? Which we won't get into right now. So what I have in front of you now is just a really brief visualization of what the Latino population looks like. As I said before, 70 to 75% of Latinos in Wisconsin are US born citizens, right? With the majority of these folks having been born in Wisconsin. So when you meet somebody in Wisconsin who self-identifies as a Latino, guess what? This person is probably going to be very young, and more than likely they're going to have been born in Wisconsin. For the foreign born, we see that the largest group, this is no mystery to anybody here, or it's not new news, is from Mexico, Venezuela, Uruguay, Colombia, Peru, Cuba, and a host of other Latin America sending countries. But this is the visualization that we have here. Here as well, we start seeing the interconnectivity between status and citizenship, because we know that most of these younger people are members of what are known as mixed status families, where in any one family, there could be a US born citizen, somebody who is a naturalized citizen, and or holds an authorized immigration status, and somebody who has an unauthorized immigration status as well. I often tell folks as well is that all people are documented. So those are kind of like misnomers to say people are undocumented, and that most people that are here might just without proper immigration authorization is just that, proper immigration authorization. About 5 years ago, there was a movement to remove the word illegal from any type of news media or coverage or publications, which some folks had thought that would be the new normal, but it doesn't seem to go away too easy. So what I just described something is very basic, right? We have a demographic shift, the so-called browning of America, and it's immigration from Latin American countries directly to Wisconsin. We have migration of Latinas, Latino, Latinx from other states and from Puerto Rico directly to Wisconsin. And we have the highest birth rate in this community than any other group. So we have an aging out of the white non-Hispanic group and an aging in of the Latino population. That in itself should tell you much. And in some, Latinos are the largest and fastest growing group in almost every urban and rural area in Wisconsin. in Wisconsin and in the country. And this matters to us on the multiple reasons, right? So now how much time do I have? I got about 5 minutes, I think. So hegemony, right? It's this power based on control of consciousness with creation of common sense producing consent rather than overt control. It is created, built, and fought over the realm of culture and ideas, as well as the context of material conditions. Okay, what I just described is part of the Latino question when we use Gramsci, a Gramscian model to understand how we create this knowledge base or how we create this counter narrative to this hegemony that makes people consent to the power structure to be. And for example, we don't question, or most folks don't question, why it is that you have to wake up and go exchange your life, your labor, right? Life is labor. And wake up every morning to go work 8 hours at a fast food, and somehow that is normal, right? That's called it's built on consent with this idea of hegemony. So the idea is to build that counter hegemony, and that's where we see much of the work of the artivist or artivism in the Voces de la Frontera organization. So Voces de la Frontera, as many of you know, is a community-based organization, membership run. It has thousands of members that are part of its ranks, including about 350 members in the Dane County area who are active participants. But as part of their message and as part of their campaigns is to be able to center that conversation, right, around issues that impact the most vulnerable of its membership, which in the state of Wisconsin is driver's license, and now it's this fight for inclusion and citizenship for all. What you see there are two call on the top is a call to action from May 1st with art that's produced in-house, and on the bottom is this new essential workers logo network that has been created. So what you have here is this call to build art from the community, right? Protest art. And what you see on the right-hand side is really, you can Google Nicholas Lampert and the story about this art build, right? But in total, what we have here is about 500 community members came together to be a part of this art building project of images that center the demands of the immigrant rights movement in these visuals, right? In these parachutes that have traveled up and down Wisconsin and to DC on several times. So what we have here is one of those parachutes, right? And this was here at the state capitol in Madison, Wisconsin. This was for the May 16th strike, Day Without Latinos. And if you look carefully, you could probably see some folks that you know.
As long as it goes, my hair looks, I don't know. Why did it? Okay. I'm live.
So here we have another one of those parachutes, and this was around the time that families were being targeted and separated by ICE. And so we came together and put this protest art to make to be able to carry these images as part of that counter hegemonic cultural production that I talked about. A few years ago, also these 287G programs, these programs that are federally funded programs that train local police forces to be ICE agents in a sense, was something that was really battled. This one was created and was taken to Waukesha as part of a protest there. But right here, it was unveiled as well at the state capitol. We know that 287G programs are getting larger or they're expanding. So there's also a fight around that. And then finally, this parachute is the one with the essential workers that are in the middle of a campaign demanding this citizenship for all in the budget reconciliation bill. And this is a picture, an image by Joe Bruschi that was taken of the Milwaukee March on October 11th. Other images of protest is that we have these, right? This is and if you see, there's on these protest banners, there's calls of what the campaigns are: driver's license for all, no walls, and so forth. But this is in downtown Madison as well, at one of the many Voces protests and presentations. And what you see in these protests are workers and their family members from across the state of Wisconsin. So Voces has chapters everywhere now. So there's chapters, for example, in Green Bay and Racine, in Milwaukee, Madison, and Fond du Lac, and in other rural areas across the state. And when Voces makes the call to action, folks turn out from across the state, including large members of the community here. So these are two of the banners that folks marched behind that were made in those types of art builds, right? These two banners were created by high school students. Voces has a group called Youth Empowered in Struggle, which is actual high school groups that are involved in these social movement organization. So what I just described as youth, workers, unauthorized or undocumented immigrants, and workers, and just a whole host of diverse people that are part of this organization and movement. As you can see, the demands are clear. Democrats don't take our vote for granted. Citizenship now. Democrats overrule the parliamentarian. Citizenship now. The demands are clear. The demands are directed. They're asking that the Democrats from Wisconsin that they take a stand and not negotiate citizenship for all out of the reconciliation bill budget. And these are images, right? Other images of this protest art and in action, right? So on the left, you have the youth. In the middle, you have an image of people marching with the different Voces logos. You see the essential workers logos, the new Voces logo. You see the demands, and then you see the plancartas. And on the bottom right, that's me and my family engaged in social movement work as well at one of these protests not too long ago. Gracias. Thank you. And I appreciate your time and would welcome any questions if I gave enough time.